What's up, everybody, and welcome to what I believe is going to be another exciting episode right here on Sheridan Nelson TV, hashtag the Growth Channel. Right here, where we believe that life is not simply meant to go through, but to grow through. And I believe today we have something that is designed to help you grow. Listen, today's topic, I believe, is going to add much value to your life, where today we focus our discussion on developing a healthy and positive mental health. We want you today to take seriously your mental health and put in place some preventative measures that will help protect your mental health. Listen, as we continue to go through this pandemic, the pandemic has done a major job on us mentally, and we want to protect our mental health. So let's get ready to dive into today's discussion. I know it is going to add value to your life. Let's go. Well, I am so excited and delighted to have this conversation today. I believe it is a very important conversation, and I have a very important special guest today that I believe is well able to speak to this conversation today as we get ready to dive in and talk today about mental health. It's a very important topic, a lot of conversation and a lot of buzz in our communities and throughout our nation around this topic. And I'm delighted, Christian, to have you here on Sheridan Nelson TV on the Growth Channel as we get ready to dive into this conversation today. To our Growth Channel community, I just want to take a moment to officially introduce today our conversationalist as we'll dive in. Kristin Bates, she hails from the great place. It was raised in Goochland County, Virginia. And for those of you that may not know where Goochland County is, it's right on the other side of Richmond, Virginia, a beautiful community there. I know where that area of Goochland is, been there on many occasions. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology from Old Dominion University, a master's degree in social work from Norfolk State University. And for the past 11 years, she's worked in the field of public school system, community-based mental health services, and has spent the last 6 years working with pediatric behavioral health center in the Norfolk, Virginia area. She's currently a licensed clinical social worker here in the state of Virginia, and she adds a lot of wealth of knowledge and experience in this whole area and arena of mental health. So, Christine, welcome. Delighted to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for allowing us to have this conversation on mental health. It's very needed now more than ever. So I'm excited to share with you. I'm excited to share with the channel and have this conversation.
Yeah, delighted to have you. Delighted. We've been talking about doing this sit down for quite some time. And I just want to say, one, I'm so godly proud of you and your work and your accomplishments. You have, been plowing away, in terms of your, from your academics and your experience. And you got a great body of work in this field. And so I can't wait to get some insights from you today in some areas. So let's just get ready to dive right in to our conversation for tonight as it relates to mental health. What I hope our goal will be today is for persons who may seem like they may be experiencing or showing some signs where they need to make some adjustments or even seek maybe some professional help, that this conversation might add value to their life. And for those that are experiencing some challenges, you might be able to point them in the direction. But I really want us to provide what I believe might be some preventative measures that people can take before they, start spiraling down a road where they end up, coming to see you and in some other facilities and things of that nature. And also maybe deal with some of the taboos of when it comes to seeking to get, help when it comes to our mental health and taking it seriously, especially in the African American community. We're growing, but I believe we still have a ways to go when it comes to protecting our mental health and seeking help when it comes to us experiencing some challenges. So I want us to just talk about those things today, what I believe I'm really excited about diving into and helping some people out in those areas. So when we start, this word now is becoming, this buzzword, like this past summer, when we start seeing some of the professional athletes coming out talking about their mental health challenges and some of the things that was going on with them personally. I remember when Naomi Osaka came out during this past summer, when Wimbledon was going on, and she withdrew to protect and preserve her mental health. And then Simone Biles, she came out later during the Olympics of withdrawing from competition, dealing with some mental health things. And so it started trending, it started buzzing, and there's been a lot of conversation and discussion. So for you, when you define mental health, help define it for us on this, for that will guide our conversation. So how do you define what mental health is?
So, our mental health is our psychological, our emotional, and our social well being. So, what does all of that mean? It refers to our cognitive abilities, so how we think about things. It talks about our behavioral, so how we behave and respond to things, and emotional, how we handle things. So, basically, our mental health. It helps guide how we think, how we feel, and how we act. It also helps us to determine how we handle stress and how we make choices in life. And so I was very happy to see Naomi and Simone step up in our community to talk about it because it's been such a buzzword. And so now people are actually saying, man, if these folks can do it, what does that actually mean? What does it mean to have good mental health? And so instead of just having that buzzword around, in this conversation, I hope we can get to what does it mean and being able to take care of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I like that definition. Can you give it to us one more time? Because I really want us to get that, and so that I believe that's going to kind of lay the foundation in terms of how you really capture that. Give me that one more time.
Our mental health is our emotional, our psychological, and our social well being. So, how we think, how we behave, and how we respond and how we handle things. So, if you look at it as a triangle, um, how we think affects how we respond to things. How we think can also correlates with how we feel about things, and vice versa. And so, if one of those things in the triangle is off, then we might have some imbalances in our overall mental health. If, for example, if I am anxious about a test coming up, I might start to over prepare, or I might start to panic a little bit. I might start to think, oh my goodness, am I going to pass this exam? Am I going to, fail this exam? And so then that impacts our performance. We go into the test and, we might have that performance anxiety. We might not do well. So all three pieces of that correlate with each other and they all impact with each other.
Okay. Now, at what point for you does it get to a place where we need to be concerned or cautious? Let's just go with the test example. So I got this test coming up. I'm feeling a little anxious about it. A little stressed, worrying about So what kind of what goes beyond just normal anxiety, stress, to something that we might have a little something else going on?
So when it starts to impact our daily function, so when we find it hard to get out of bed or we don't want to get out of bed, when we find changes in our eating habits, we're eating too much, eating too less, when we withdraw and not enjoying the things that we used to enjoy. Also, when the anxiety comes so much that we can't, just do daily functions, we start to have panic attacks. We're afraid to leave the house. Certain things trigger us. that's when it becomes, an issue. So when those things start to impact our daily functioning is when, we kind of have taken it a little bit too far and we need to reel ourselves back in.
Okay, good. That's real helpful in terms of being able to see those signs, one in ourselves, and also to be able to see them in others too, in family members, family members and friends. Now, I know you're a person of faith, because we actually attend the same church, and I know you're a person of faith. So what do you say to the good Christians who say, just pray about it, just pray about it?
I would
Everything
say,
everything will be okay. Just pray about
right. So I say, you need Jesus and a therapist. Um,
it.
So there's nothing wrong with it. I think God created these skills in us to be able to use them to help people. And if we think about it, anxiety was in the Bible. God said, be anxious of nothing. And so some of these things are in the Bible. And so, yes, there is, when we're talking about best practices, there is a spirituality and a religious component, and there's also the component of seeking help outside of the church. And it's awesome that some churches have um, counseling groups and mentors and other folks in the church that can help, spiritual leaders, pastors, things like that. And there's also training that goes along with being a therapist, being a psychiatrist, that is also helpful, to be able to maintain a healthy balance in your mental health.
Yeah, and I think you kind of said that a word that kind of where I was going next is, so when we look at this, and if what are some things in light of the pressure we're dealing with now with our economy, and the pandemic is still a major issue, and a lot of people are experiencing loss, and we're wearing masks, and we have this what is now called the new normal, that we are getting adjusted to, and so a lot of people in terms of their psychological, emotional, and cognitive space, may be a little cloudy right now. I'm contending, and I'm having conversations now where I'm suggesting and even saying that we have yet to even see the impact of this pandemic, especially on our kids and our children. A lot of them that will now grow up, in this climate, in this pandemic, and what the last year and a half has done. I don't think we have even seen the totality of what it has done to impact us, from a psychological and emotional and cognitive place. But when you start talking about best practices and things we can put in place and do, if you were to give us, your top things so that we can help maintain, good mental health, what would some of those things be for you?
Sure. I think the first thing is just being able to recognize and say something is wrong or
Mm-hmm.
something is going on. I think for so long, mental health has been so taboo and it's been a lot of stigma around it that it's almost, people are fearful to talk about it. Growing up in Goochland, we didn't talk about mental health. So this was all very new to me when I came to college. I laugh all the time because my grandfather, my parents would tell me, or my aunts would tell me all kinds of stories about my grandfather. And I think had he been alive now, we would have had a diagnosis for him, but we would say, oh, he was in the war, or they just a little crazy, or they just a little touched. And so we have to get away from those words and actually recognizing and calling things what it is. If something is going on, it's okay. And so just being aware and being able to see it in other people and talk about it, having these healthy relationships, having these healthy conversations with others is going to help. So the first thing I would say is just being able to recognize I'm not okay, and it's okay not to be okay. There are tons of resources out there. There's tons of best practices. But I think if we were to sum it up, I would like to sum it up in like four different sections. So if we start off first, I think the first one is just taking care of our physical health. That is huge in mental health. One of the things that we tend to slack off when we are going through something is our overall physical health. We stop exercising. We don't eat enough or we eat too much. We cope with things by our comfort foods, going to get a pizza, going to get sushi. I might be telling on myself. But we start we start to overeat. So just being mindful of those things. We get stationary. We stop working out. And it doesn't have to be a very vigorous, I'm going to sprint today, or I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do this high intensity workout, walking, doing some yoga. Those things are going to help those chemicals, those endorphins, those natural chemicals that your body makes, those feel good chemicals that your body makes. It's going to help you out, and it's going to naturally get you to feel a little bit better. Some runners say that they get, for lack of better words, a high off of running because those endorphins are being released so much and they feel good
Yeah,
afterwards.
I'm really trying to
um,
get to that point where I can experience that high. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm trying.
either. I haven't gotten there either. But it also makes us feel a sense of accomplishment. I just walked this mile, or what, I just finished this class. So it gives us that sense of, man, I did something. I feel bad, but I was still able to accomplish this. So just get out and exercise, even if it's 30 minutes a day, just exercise. Um, Another thing that tends to fall off is our sleep hygiene. So that is super important in being able to get a good night's rest. So putting your phone away, turning the TV off, and getting good sleep. Oftentimes we get caught up in our mind and it's so hard to sleep and we're up, we're worried about things. But making an effort to get a good night's rest is going to be super important. And there's a lot of things to do to wind down, using lavender, taking a hot bath before, turning off the TV, turning off the phone. There are a lot of apps that you can download to help you sleep. They play like the white noise and things like that. So making sure that you have good sleep hygiene. And that's also going to release that serotonin and all those other endorphins that make you feel better. It's also going to make you think a little bit more clear. If you're tired, then you're not going to be able to put much effort and motivation into things. Um, so exercise, good sleep, and making sure that you are eating well. I would say sums up the physical part of a good mental health
Okay, so
practice.
that's part one. The physicality of this is um, fitness, our diet, and our sleep and rest. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay. All right. So that's the physical piece.
Yeah. The next piece I would say is social. So one of the things that we tend to do when we start to not feel well mentally is to isolate. And that's a dangerous place to be. All kinds of thoughts creep into our mind. Um, and it's not a good place to be, to just be with your thoughts sometimes when you're going through things. Um, and so being able to get up with someone, FaceTime someone, have lunch with your coworker. Just don't isolate yourself. We as people aren't meant to go through life alone. And one of the reasons is because we need that partnership with people. We need to have that community to be able to talk to be able to rationalize things with. Um, and when I say social, sometimes we all have them. We got the yes man in our group and the no man in our group. And our yes man will tell us all the bad things that we have rationalized in our head. But being able to have that balance of friends who, can also steer you in the right direction is very important.
I gotta go. Because you. So what do you do, Chris? And with that in this social piece, You got a family member or friend, going back to some of the things that you just said earlier, that might be signs that either we may be showing ourselves, or a friend or a family member may be showing. So now you got this friend or family member that, don't really want to go anywhere every time you call, or if it's a girlfriend or a homeboy or, a family member, they don't want to come to any functions anymore, or they don't want to go out anymore. And you're starting to see this sign from somebody who used to be someone fairly social. They may go out, whatever, but now they're seemingly becoming withdrawn. How would you advise someone who may be listening to what they can do if they're experiencing that sense of withdrawingness from a family member or a friend?
I think gentle confrontation is appropriate. So maybe having that conversation, hey man, you know what? The past 3 times the guys got up, you declined to go. So just wondering if there's anything that you and I, can talk about. Is there anything that you have on your chest that you want to get off? I'm here to listen. A lot of times people are fearful to have those conversations because they think the other person won't listen. So being able to offer that. Also, maybe see if it's a place where they want to go, or, they want to meet up. So, you guys are going out to this place. Maybe that's uncomfortable for them. Maybe they do want that opportunity to talk to you, or meet up, but they just don't know how. Maybe the venue or what's going on might be too loud of a place or too many people. So maybe suggesting, hey, haven't seen you in a while. Is there a place that you would like to meet up today? So maybe throwing the ball in their court. But I think there's always room. Sometimes we call it positive friction too. So be able to push it a little bit, and just have those conversations. This is what I noticed. Is there anything that I can do to help?
This is good, man. You are helping us. You are helping us. But go ahead. I know you got something else that you want to say about the social piece. So go ahead. Go. Let's go.
Yeah, I think also, sometimes when we find ourselves isolating or not feeling social, sometimes we don't want to do things for ourselves, but we do feel and experience some joy or some sense of excitement being able to help others. So sometimes it's as simple as going and finding a volunteer opportunity, that makes us feel better about ourselves, or make us feel, it brings us joy. So that's also another piece of that social. What's good for your social mental health is you can help others making some sort of contribution. I know oftentimes in inner cities they have tons of volunteer experiences or activities. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're out in the streets and boots on the ground, but it could be we're packing lunches, and I'm packing those lunches, I'm around people, and so those sorts of things can be very helpful as well.
Man, that's good. So, in terms of developing this positive um, approach to creating good mental health, we got some things we need to be doing physically. There's some things we need to be doing socially, and I know what's the next one for you.
Oh, let's talk about spirituality and religion.
Okay,
um,
okay.
that's super important. Praying, meditating, attending worship, staying connected, um, those are super important to our mental health. A matter of fact, on most assessments that you do, if you come and do an intake, we're going to assess for spirituality. And we bring that into therapy. It helps us learn how to tolerate stress. It helps us generate some peace. It helps us find our purpose, forgiveness. It teaches us compassion and gratitude. So all of those are some themes with spirituality and religion that are super important to mental health. Oftentimes we get so down on ourselves, and we don't have grace for ourselves. We don't have compassion for ourselves, and it just continues to get us in this downward spiral. But if you can stay connected to the church, if you can continue to pray, and push through it, because sometimes you're like, God, why is this happening to me? Where's my help? You're supposed to help me. But continuing to pray and lean on that higher power is definitely going to help with your mental health.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that as one of those areas, and it's even as you're talking, it's something I want you to. On another note, we'll talk offline about this in terms of helping me as a pastor provide more information and some things that we can probably be doing a lot better in helping people create a balance. Because again, I think sometimes in Christ, in the church, we can sometimes maybe send a message that that could be a little convoluted in terms of just pray, just turn to Jesus, and like you said at the very beginning, you need to you need a pastor and you need a therapist. You need a church and you need a couch. You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes we don't advocate that enough. Let me use that word, whether it be with our children, whether it be with ourselves or family members. We don't advocate clinical and professional help. I know personally when people come to meet with me, where I say what I'm doing, because I'm not a licensed clinical counselor. So what I normally, what I do is provide spiritual guidance. And once it gets to a certain point, and through my training and my experience, I normally refer persons to people that I have in relationship with, that, hey, you really need to go talk to somebody that is trained in that area, whether it be, marital or, mental or whatever the case may be. I do have those referrals, but getting people to the point in the body of Christ where they feel it's okay, and we get beyond this taboo-ness of going to talk to people, going to therapy, going to counseling, getting clinical help. We see a lot of this with our children, and I believe a lot of it comes from food and a whole lot of things now that we see, all of these labels that are placed on children, and emotional and cognitive and things that are placed on children at an early age. And a lot of times parents don't want to get the children help, and so they can't function in the classroom, and we just label them as they just bad, and it's like, no, they really have something going on that we
Right.
need to really get treated here to help them, versus them hurting themselves or hurting somebody else because, they have these other emotional and mental things going on. And so I really want to help us in our communities get beyond that, in our churches get beyond that, where we can begin to really approach life from a holistic posture. And I hope this conversation is helping to provide some insights for persons. So we got the physical, we got the social, and now we're moving into this area of spirituality, and the role that our spirit, because we are spirit beings, we are spirit people, and so it's important for us to nurture our spirits.
Sure. And if I could just, you brought up, kids and, we label them as bad. If I could just put a little plug in there. So I worked as a school social worker for Norfolk Public Schools for a couple of years. And I think one of the things with our kids is that growing up, our parents didn't know what mental health was. We didn't know what these diagnoses were. And oftentimes we grew up to just keep things in the family, or, if someone was crying, a little boy was crying, it was, dry them tears, you gotta boss up, you gotta be a man. And so when we do that, we stunt the emotional growth of our kids so much. It's okay to cry. It's okay to talk about things, but we send these messages constantly on how we're supposed to express our feelings. And oftentimes that means that we're supposed to stifle them. Um,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
so it's generational. And so we have to learn to break that generational, this is how you're supposed to be. And oftentimes it comes to reteaching the parents. It's okay for your kid to cry. It's okay. But we also want to teach them healthy ways to cope about things. We want to teach them how to, identify feelings and know that feelings are okay. Feelings are there to serve a purpose. And it's okay to express them, but let's learn how to express them appropriately. Hitting someone, kicking someone, that's not okay when you're mad, but it's okay to be mad. And so oftentimes it's a lot of parent training on reteaching parents, how to communicate emotions with their kids. Second thing is we in the Black community don't recognize trauma as much as we should. So you have someone, coming into school and they're acting out, and we label them bad. We label them emotionally disturbed. But if you sit down and have a conversation with them, they heard gunshots all night. They're worried about food. They're taking care of their siblings. It's so much trauma. And this is something in the field that I often call out because we label kids as little Black kids as bad. They're not bad. Their decisions sometimes are poor, but also let's sit down and talk to them and have a conversation about it. Did you get sleep last night? No. Why not? So it's a lot of trauma in the Black community that when these kids respond to it, even adults, when we respond to it, um, it's bad, but it's not. It's untreated trauma. And so, that's something else that we in the Black community need to work on too. Black community and the mental health field need to work on and recognize as well.
Wow, that's powerful. And you are so on it. You are so on it. Oh, you are so on it. I can't, man. I can't wait for us to get together and do some stuff because I really see some areas where we can kind of do more in this for our communities. So I'm trying to stay on topic. I'm trying to stay on topic, but I'm just really getting excited. And my mind is just starting to turn and race here. So we got the physical piece, we have the social piece, we have the spiritual piece, and is there any other components?
Yeah, so the next part is just emotional. So this is the
Okay.
last thing. How are you emotionally take care of yourself? So there are a lot of things that we can do for ourselves before we get to that place of therapy and being able to maintain our overall mental health. I'll let you know one of my favorite things to do when I get stressed out. It sounds corny, but it works for me. Down at the airport, they have an observation deck. So when I get stressed, I go to the observation deck and I watch planes land and take off. And I do what's called guided imagery. So I picture my stress and my worries on the plane, and I picture a place where they're going to go to that's far away, and it releases that from me. Or I say, oh man, I wonder where this plane is going, and I know no planes go from Norfolk to Aruba, but I'm always in Aruba. I'm on a beach somewhere. And I just picture myself and I visualize myself there. And it allows me to get out of my head for a little bit and puts me in a place that makes me feel better. So, guided imagery techniques are important, or, is one technique that you can use. Um, Another technique is breathing. So, breathing exercises. One thing that we tend to do, especially when we get anxious, is we immediately stop breathing or we breathe too quickly. So just being able to slow down and take some deep breaths, getting that fresh air in, and then letting it go. Those are important. Um, I like to also teach clients something called progressive muscle relaxation because oftentimes we carry our stress throughout our body. Um, and so with this technique, you can either start from your toes or start from your head, and you go down and you squeeze each muscle group as hard as you can for about 8 seconds, and then you release it. And afterwards, your body should feel calmer. Um, if you don't have money to go to the masseuse, that might be, a good relaxation technique for you. So there are things at home that you can do. There's also things like learning how to challenge your thoughts. So oftentimes when we start to get overwhelmed with things, we go to the worst case scenario, and that's when we get anxious about things. So just learning how to ask yourself those questions. If the worst case scenario happens, then what? Or what if the worst case scenario doesn't happen? So being able to learn how to retrain your thoughts and asking yourself those questions is another way to emotionally take care of yourself. And then, of course, there's always professional help. Sitting down and just being able to debrief and feeling like, hey, the person on the other side of the couch isn't going to judge me, but they're here to help me. They're here to listen. One thing I do want to put in is sometimes people go to therapy thinking that the therapist is going to fix them. My job isn't a fixer, but my job is to empower you to and lead you to your own conclusions. Because if I tell you all the answers, you're not going to want to do it. But if you feel empowered to do it up on yourself, then it's going to be longer lasting. It's going to set in a little bit more. So being able to seek out therapy is important as well.
Wow, that is really some great stuff. Some great stuff. So we need to, if we're gonna create positive mental health space and operate from a positive mental health posture, we need to develop a plan for nurturing our physical person, um, come up with a social plan, socializing plan and strategy, and nurture our spirit person, nurture our spirit, and the last one was creating an emotional plan
Yes.
and putting some
And
things together.
it's a holistic
It's a
approach, that
holistic approach. Absolutely, yeah.
our whole beings. And so it wouldn't be right for us just to focus on, one piece of ourselves. We need to focus on our whole self.
Yeah,
And so,
and I think far too often again Christians we focus on it. We good, we do all right. Let me say that we do all right when it comes to the whole spirit piece. But man, we out of shape, right? And we don't really socialize much out of church because we've tabooed that, and so we don't really have good, healthy, social arenas and settings. And man, we don't have good things in place for emotionally. Emotionally, a lot of times we're a wreck, we're a mess. And so I think what you've provided us with in this session is a good approach to have and create a holistic plan that will help preserve and protect our mental health.
yes, most definitely. And again, you are a whole person. So it's important to take care of ourselves, holistically, not just one piece. But you owe it to yourself to be able to take care of every aspect of yourself and be a good steward of it. We have this one body, so just being a good steward over this body that we have, and that goes far beyond just what we see on the outside, but how we feel on the inside. And I think that's what creates so much difficulty in talking about mental health, because and seeking help, because if we have a broken arm, of course we're going to go to the doctor. We can see it, we can feel it, but if it's something that's going on inside of us, it might not be as recognizable, and so we won't go seek out that help. But just like if you were to go to the doctor and they would diagnose you with the flu, you would have a treatment plan on how to get better. So, if we're having these overwhelming thoughts, if we're having, this overwhelming stress and sadness, going to a therapist, you're going to get that same treatment plan. And it doesn't necessarily mean you always have to be on medication. It doesn't necessarily always mean that you have to have this intensive therapy every week. But they're going to come up with a treatment plan with you to address kind of your whole self. So when I do an assessment, I'm talking about how much do you exercise? I'm talking about the activities that you do. I'm talking about how do you cope with things. And so we're going to look at things from a holistic perspective, to be able to tailor that treatment plan to get you to the other side of things.
Wow. Awesome. That's great. Listen, as we get ready to kind of, wrap up our conversation and discussion, man, it's been a wealth of knowledge you've shared today and some great insights, and I appreciate you for it. Um, are there any resources or tools that you might recommend? And I definitely want you to, if you don't mind, share, where people can find you if you're on social media. Share your information in terms of your handles, where people can maybe find you. And if they have some follow up questions, they can send you a message and maybe dialogue even more about this even after this episode is over. But are there any resources you can share with our listening audience?
Sure, there are a few. I do want to start off by saying you can always start with your local, if we're talking about therapy, you can always start with your local insurance company. So they will be able to provide you in-network providers to go to. There is a very good resource called Psychology Today. And so there you can narrow down what kind of therapist you're looking for. You can narrow it down by insurance, race, gender, specialties. And so that is another phenomenal resource. Um, Black girls, or is it Black girl therapy? That's a really good one. You can look for other African American therapists that will be able to provide you with services. There's also, if therapy is not what you're seeking, there's tons of apps online. So if you go to your app store on Google or Apple, if you type in therapy or meditation, there will be a ton of apps that pop up. One of the things that I also like to do or talk to clients about is just journaling. Sometimes getting down your thoughts can be very helpful. So there are some journal apps out there where it gives you prompts and things like that. So any of those resources would be super helpful. There is, in the state of Virginia, we have what's called community services boards. Sometimes it's referred to as the CSB. So each city has that, and it is a mental health coalition within that city that will be able to also provide you with services. And most often their services are free. But for those who do have the means, they might charge you on like a sliding scale fee. But that is an awesome resource throughout the area as well.
Well, good, and though that a lot of those that information you've shared, we're going to make those links available, and it will be right here in this broadcast, so people can refer back to it to some of those sites that you've mentioned. But that's really helpful. I mean, I didn't even know some of that. You could find really apps for it. Wow, I didn't even know that. Well, I want to
Yeah.
thank you for being so informative and providing us with a wealth of insights in terms of this conversation as it relates to our mental health. And I'm going to let you close us out. Are there any final takeaways that you would want to share with our listening audience here on the Growth Channel? Is there anything you want them to just walk away? A lot has been said, but what would be your final takeaways for them?
My final takeaway is it's okay to not be okay. There are tons of people in your corner, whether it be, in your church, in your school, in your local community that are there who want to help and are willing to help. And so, all it takes is that first step to be able to reach out, and, people will be there with open arms to be able to help you. So it's okay, but you're going to get through it.
It's okay to not be okay. Wow.
Mhm.
That's liberating. That's freeing because too many of us are going around trying to fake it like we're okay with our spouses, with our friends, and really there's a person on the inside of us that is really screaming for some help. And we won't get them the help that they need because we feel the pressure to always be okay. But today, thank you for that. It's okay to not be okay. And we're going to end on that note. Thank you for the insights you've shared, Kristin. And we're probably going to be doing a follow up, a part two to this, because I know we can probably go into some other areas and go deeper into some other areas. So I look forward to having you back with us at a later time. And I believe there's going to be some good work we're going to get ready to do in this arena. So thank you for sharing. I know this has added value to our listeners' lives and it's helped them to grow and to be better. So thank you for sharing with us today.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome. You'll be back.
I will. I will be back.
All right. All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you.